Welcome to Canadian Range. This is video number 1 and I'm your host Sergey. I am based in Ontario, Canada, and this channel will be focused on recreational shooting and non-restricted firearms. So Canadian rules are pretty different from American rules as far as firearms are concerned. And first off, I got a nifty list over here. So first off, types of firearms. We have prohibited firearms such as AR-15, AR-10, M16, sawed-off shotguns. Then we have restricted, such as regular pistols and revolvers. And then we have non-restricted. Like non-restricted is anything that you would use during hunting or target practice. Such as shotguns and rifles. Now, surprisingly, a rifle, they can shoot like what most people use for long range shooting, you know, like kilometer, 1,000 yards, whatever. Kind of like a sniper's rifle. It's legal as long as it doesn't have a crazy caliber like a 50 cal, right? And I'll talk about calibers in a second. But basically, yeah, that's the three types of firearms. So prohibited, restricted, and non-restricted. Now, prohibited, it doesn't mean that nobody can buy them. You can still buy them as long as you are a member of a law enforcement or of the military. And of course, prohibited are fully automatic machine guns, you know, where one pull of the trigger can get like a burst, you know, of 3 or 4 or whatever. So those are only for professionals. Civilians cannot buy them in Canada. And AR-15, which is so popular in the States, and 1,500 other similar rifles were banned in the spring of 2020. So until 2020, they were probably restricted, but you can still buy them. But in 2020, a mass shooting happened in Nova Scotia, Canada. And right away, the government came up with this plan. So 1,500 different rifles were prohibited, and among them the most noteworthy were AR-15, AR-10, and M16, what they call assault style rifles, even though they're not fully auto. Like, how can it be an assault style rifle? It's not. It's semi-auto, you know, pretty much, you know, typical gun. But that's what they did. So the difference between US and Canada, clause number 2 on my nifty list over here. The biggest difference is that there's no Second Amendment. Believe it or not, you cannot use a firearm to protect yourself in Canada. If you're in a house and you have your restricted or non-restricted firearm like a pistol or a shotgun, and somebody tries to break in and you shoot them, you will go to prison. You know, I know Americans are probably just falling off the chairs right now if you're from the States watching this, but yeah, so Canada, no self-defense with a firearm. And another thing is that that's number 1. Number 2 is that Canadian laws prohibit large magazines. Like a typical magazine for a shotgun or a rifle is 5 cartridges, and for a pistol its maximum is 10. And so they will still sell you a magazine with higher capacity, but it will be blocked. You know, there'll be like a pin in there. And so even though a magazine can hold, in theory, somewhere in the States, that magazine is good for 10 or 15 or 20 rounds, there's a pin in there, so you can only put 5 or something. But I talked to a rep today in Cabela's, you know, kind of like Pro Bass Pro kind of deal, right? And the guy says some firearms actually you can still get in 10 capacity, but it basically depends on the caliber, like basically smaller bullets. I think he was saying like 223 Remington, for example. Some rifles you can still get in a capacity of 10, but typical standard large ammunition, it's 5. So that's the big difference with the US. So over there you guys can have all kinds of magazines, right? So over here it's limited, and no self-defense, and the most popular American weapons are banned here, right? Like AR-15. Now, getting the firearm in Canada, I had no idea about this until like 2 months ago. But all it takes is a course. You have to take a course called Canadian Firearms Safety Course. And there's like 2 levels. One is for non-restricted weapons. And then if you want to go restricted route, which is not a good idea, and I'll explain why in a second, you have to take, after the first one, non-restricted course, you have to take the second course. So basically, if you want to buy like a pistol, which is restricted, so you have to have 2 courses, and you cannot just jump to this restricted course after the, you know, from 0. You have to finish the level 1 or non-restricted. And courses are about, I would say, close to $200 Canadian for one, or you can do them back to back. I think it's like $350. Again, all dollars are Canadian. The problem is it's not easy to find a place because they're all so busy. But there's a website where you can look for the CFSC, right? Canadian Firearms Safety Course, CFSC. If you can just Google CFSC Course Canada. Oh, and in Canada it's all federal. All these rules, like, it's not provincial level, it's all federal level. So, which is actually cool, which means that you don't need any special permits or anything. Once you have your license, you can buy a rifle in Alberta, you know, like a bunch of stores online, right? And they will ship in Canada only, no export. But if you're a Canadian, basically, because it's all federally regulated, it doesn't matter where you live. Like, I found the biggest online store I found is in New Brunswick, like, you know, 1,000 miles away from me, but they ship with Canada Post, as long as you have your, you know, proper documentation, and they have a large selection of all kinds of shotguns, rifles, you know, even handguns. But so yeah, you can buy it anywhere in Canada. It's not like in the States where each state has their own rules. Like here, there's, and probably that's, I forgot, that's like difference number 3 between Canada and the States, that in Canada it's all federally regulated. Provinces have no say in this, right? So all stores can sell to whoever. Like Alberta can sell to a guy like me from Ontario. An Ontario store can sell a rifle by mail to somebody in British Columbia, but again, only inside Canada. They do not sell to, let's say, Americans, Germans, Japanese, you know, outside of the country. And so that's the step, basically. Step number 1, you have to find this course. And actually I did find one, so I'm myself at the very beginning of this journey, trying to get into recreational shooting. And I found a course. I drove 45 miles to the gun club near me where these courses are held, paid the money. It was about $200, and the guy says, yeah, here's the date. And then 1 week before the course was supposed to start, I received an email where he says, well, I need at least 7 people and you were the only one, so we'll have to try it again in a few weeks. And now I was at Cabela's, and Cabela's, you can actually, you go in the store and you can sign up right there. They ask for $20 cash only, like here in Barrie. I'm in Barrie, Ontario. So this is probably the nearest to me Cabela, and of course they sell all kinds of rifles, shotguns, you know, ammunition, all kinds of good stuff. I spent a couple of hours at the store there. It was really fascinating. Talked to a sales guy. I learned a couple of things about different brands of rifles. But yeah, like Cabela, you go in and you say, hey, I want to register for the CFSC course. And she said, okay, $20 cash, and I think they take a picture of your driver's license. And I asked them, where's the next, when is the next course? And she says, August 15th. And today is only July 2nd. So it's like a month and a half. And this other guy, I already paid for the course, right? So now I just need him to get enough people. And so he says anywhere between 7 and 10. And now he sends me an email saying that he's trying to get people. Next course is the day after tomorrow, Monday. And I said, hey, I'm a trucker. I'm on my way to Saskatchewan. You cannot just do this. I need at least 2 weeks notice. I said, let me know when you have something at the end of July. And so basically that's the problem, is finding the course, because these guys are super busy, but that's what it costs, about 200 bucks. And then after that is the actual application process, which takes at least 4 weeks when you apply for this PAL, Possession and Acquisition License. That's how it's pronounced, PAL, like a friend, PAL, P-A-L. So once you get your PAL, and you're registered with the police and everything, then you can go to a store or go online and you can buy a weapon. And what I mentioned before about restricted and non-restricted, turns out if you buy a restricted gun, it's allowed, yeah, so as long as you do the training. But the thing is, now the government is considering legislation to ban the transfer of ownership for handguns. You know, so they're not gonna ban like if you already have a handgun, it's okay, it's legal, but you won't be able to sell it, or you won't be able to, like, you cannot sell your existing pistol, and you cannot buy a new one. So basically they're trying to ban, and their secret plan is that in a couple of generations, when all these people die, and you know, when you die, you cannot transfer that gun to your kids, right? And so what they're hoping to achieve is that in a couple of generations, when everybody dies, handguns will be extinct. So pistols, revolvers, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get rid of them altogether, which to me doesn't make any sense at all. But the thing is, the problem with restricted guns, so for now it's still legal. Like if I had my PAL now, I could go and buy, and you know, they're not that expensive. You can buy a decent pistol somewhere under $1,000 Canadian, you know, like 500, 600 you can buy used. But the thing is, because it's considered restricted, you can only keep it in your house or apartment, whatever, and then you cannot take it for hunting, you know. Of course, I don't know how you would hunt with a handgun, but the only two things where you can have that handgun or restricted weapon is either on your property, or you can go to a shooting range. And it's not just, you know, pack and go. No, you have to notify police. You have to tell them your exact route, when and where you're driving. It's very, you know, highly controlled by the government when you have a restricted weapon, and so it's no fun. Whereas if you have a non-restricted firearm, such as shotgun or rifle, you can keep it in your car. You don't have to notify anybody. Like you can go not just for long-range shooting or, you know, range shooting, but you can go hunting as long as you have your hunting license, right? So non-restricted, in my opinion, is the way to go if you just want to, you know, shoot for fun. Because restricted is just too many headaches, and they're gonna get rid of these handguns quite soon anyway. And so that's how you get the firearm in Canada. And so there's a bunch of stores, like retail stores, but of course the biggest bang for your buck will be available online, because like I said, I found this place in New Brunswick and they ship all over Canada. And so of course online it's cheaper. You can find much better deals than I think at the retail stores. And one curious thing is that okay, I'll talk about that later. I just wanted to mention about buying stuff in the States for Canadians. Okay, number 4, shotgun, pistol, or rifle. So shotgun and rifle, like I mentioned, are non-restricted. Pistols are restricted, so I'm not gonna bother with that. So me personally, I'm only gonna take level 1 course, the non-restricted firearms course, and I'll either start with a shotgun, or I'll just jump into you know, rifle and get something like a nice decent hunting rifle that I can go to a range and do some practice shooting. I'm not sure I'm gonna do any hunting unless it's some small animal, because you know if I kill a deer, what am I gonna do with a deer? Where do I store it? You know, I don't need that kind of meat. And so I personally, I like shotguns and I like rifles. Number 5, can Canadians hunt in US? Oh, and actually we're going to expand this. Can Canadians buy firearms in US? Well, first off, Canadians are not allowed to buy firearms in the States, and they're not allowed to buy ammunition. And worst of all, like the funniest thing is that you cannot even buy a rifle scope. Like I'm as a Canadian, let's say I want a particular rifle scope for this long range rifle, and it's not available here, and I see on the US website it's much cheaper. No, turns out it's not like prohibited or something. It's just that Canada is on that restricted list. So import from US for scopes to Canada is restricted. So basically you have to have like an export agent. You cannot just walk in the store in the States and buy it, and they will sell it to you. I don't think they will ask you for a license, but quite a few people got into trouble when they were trying to cross back into Canada, and they were stopped by CBP on the US side, and of course they confiscate the scope. One guy decided to save $135, and he just drove from Canada across the border, and he bought a nice scope that he was, you know, dreaming about. So he saved $135. They put him in prison for 2 days. They confiscated his car for 6 months, and the worst part is they banned he cannot go to US anymore. Like he has a lifetime ban, so he can never enter US. And so basically it's crazy, but you can still hunt in the States. I actually asked a CBP officer when I was crossing into Canada, and he says, well, you have to go to Alcohol and Firearms website, and there's a form. You fill out that form, and they say it'll take 8 to 10 weeks. It's crazy. Basically there's enough, I think there's enough gun clubs and shooting ranges in Canada, so hunting in US, I don't know, 10 weeks. And then the guy says, yeah, as long as you have all your ducks in a row and you have this form from Alcohol and Firearms and, you know, tobacco, you know, approved and everything, yeah, you can bring your, let's say, shotgun, you can bring your ammunition. But again, you cannot, if they catch you with ammunition on the way back and they discover that you bought it in the States somehow. Like one guy, I read another horror story, they searched the guy's pickup truck and he didn't have any guns, but they found a couple of shells, like 22 LR whatever shells under the bed of his truck. It just probably rolled into there. And so they searched him, they called police, they called even like the army. Man, he says that he spent, like, I think more than a day at the border just because they found these spent casings, you know. Americans, they really freak out when Canadians buy ammunition in the States. It's like crime of the century. But Canadians are allowed to hunt in the States. But again, the procedure is totally crazy. Number 6, popular shotgun brands. I did extensive research on this subject, and of course we have pump action manual shotguns, and we have semi-automatic shotguns, right? We don't have automatic ones. I don't know, maybe you guys have them in the States, but here it's pump action or semi-automatic. And the best one I would say is Benelli M4 semi-automatic shotgun. I would say spot number 2 is Beretta 1301, and number 3 I would say is Mossberg 940. All these are semi-automatic, but if I was going for pump action, I would probably go with the Mossberg 590 S1, which is the military version with a heavier barrel. And just to give you an idea about pricing, Benelli M4 goes here around for about 2,600 Canadian, unless it's on sale, and then you can get it for about 2350. Beretta is way cheaper at 1,700 bucks, again Canadian. But the best deal I think is Mossberg 940, if you can find it. Brand new semi-automatic, beautiful shotgun. goes for $12.50 Canadian. So I think that's the best deal in terms of nice semi-automatic shotguns. And of course the beauty with shotguns is that one gun can shoot all kinds of ammunition, right? So you can shoot pellets, you can shoot you know, like buckshot, bird shot, right? And it's buckshot like 00, where you have like 9 pellets, which are pretty big, like 9mm in diameter. That's what you use, that's what police and military use to, you know, bring down doors. Like 00 buckshot, man, that thing is a killer. And it's a lot of fun. I saw people doing clay shooting, you know, or even practicing with some targets. One guy was shooting at pumpkins, jugs of water, you know, jugs of Pepsi Cola. You know, shotguns can be a lot of fun, but of course it's all closer range, like 100 yards, you know, 100 meters. But if money was no object and I was shopping for a shotgun, I would probably get either the best of the best Benelli M4, or I would get Mossberg 940 JM, Jerry Michalek, who participated, like the professional shooter who participated in the design of this. Popular shotgun ammunition, I already touched on that. By the way, speaking about pricing, here in Canada, normally a box of nice ammo, like 20 cartridges in the box, will cost you about 20 to 30 bucks. So it's roughly $1 per cartridge. Now, popular rifle brands, it's probably similar picture as in the States. A lot of people like you know, imported brands like Tikka, Finnish, or Bergara from Spain, or this Sako, I think it's from Japan, right? Then there's CZ from Czech Republic. They had the CZ 525 bolt action rifle, but now there's new models. But then of course there's Mossberg, like Mossberg Patriot. There's Ruger, like Ruger American, Ruger Predator, all kinds of good stuff. Like I spent so much time online, you know, looking at all these brands, and then, you know, you want a heavier barrel, you want a certain length of your barrel, like optimal, like 22 inches, you know, for long range shooting and all that good stuff. But yeah, I was at rifles, I was mostly looking at bolt action rifles. And I talked today to this guy at Cabela, right? I mentioned this, and I was saying, you know, like I watched a couple of videos where people were comparing the bolt action, and quite a few of them, even like Savage, or that's another famous brand, Savage. Even Savage with that direct pull bolt, like I see people struggle, you know, they get stuck. And I said, would you recommend any rifle where the bolt is, you know, has some smooth action? And right away he pointed me to Tikka. He says, I think that's the best, and he demonstrated how the bolt was moving like really easy, you know. And I say, can I hold it? And he says, do you have your PAL? Do you have your possession and acquisition license? I said, no. He says, no, then I cannot give it to you. So he was just showed me this. He had on display there, he had Mossberg, he had the Ruger, and he had Tikka. And I saw quite a few guns that I already recognized from online research. Like another one, Howa M1500. Also a pretty good one. So we had lots of brands, but of course I keep an eye on this online store in New Brunswick. I see that the inventory out of stock, then in stock, out of stock, in stock. So but they keep refreshing it. But the inventory of handguns went drastically down because a lot of people decided to get in, since the government is about to ban the purchase and transfer of handguns. So everybody rushed to the stores, and a couple of weeks ago, like, everything was sold out in terms of handguns, like pistols, revolvers. Okay, popular rifle brands, I mentioned that. Popular ammunition for long range shooting. So most of the sources agree that the best round for long range shooting is 6.5 Creedmoor. And but I talked to Cabela guy, I said, how about 6.5 cm? Do you have any issues with supply, you know? And he says, oh yeah, it's not as popular as, let's say, 308 Winchester, right? But I would say that those would be my two choices, 308 Win or 6.5 cm, and they would go for about the same price. I saw a box of 20 can cost anywhere from 30 bucks to 60, so basically Canadian. So basically a cartridge would cost around $1.50 or $2 per one shot, right? And that's why, of course, it's good to have a bolt action rifle. You know, you don't shoot that much, right? But the cheapest caliber, and you can still get guns, I mean rifles that use it, is the Soviet AK-47 cartridge, 762 by 39. Not the NATO, right? NATO has 762 by, what is it, 54, which is the same as 308 pretty much. But 762 by 39, the one that was used in AK-47 and this SKS rifle. And some American rifles like Ruger, you can get a Ruger, I think it's American, or Ruger Predator, that is actually designed for this round. Or and also Howa M1500, you can buy chambered for this round, Soviet 762, and that's the cheapest cartridge here currently. So you can buy in bulk, you can buy a box of 1,000 rounds for about $400 Canadian. So one shot will only cost you 40 cents. And so that's huge. But of course, it's not the most accurate, you know, round. And some people saying, well, sooner or later they're going to disappear, because most armies in the world are you know, changing from AK-47 clones to better weapons. But still, this 762, there's so many AK-47s, you know, in the world, that this 762 by 39, I personally think it'll be around, you know, I don't know, for at least 3-5 more years, and it's readily available online. There's no shortages, but of course, again, it's not as good as a 6.5 cm, of course, but that's the cheapest one. So if I was getting into this and just getting started, I would just buy, let's say, that Howa M1500, an excellent rifle, and get it in the 762 by 39 caliber, and then I can shoot as much as I want, buy a box of 1,000 rounds. I can be there a whole week shooting, you know. And then, of course, accessories, right? So once you get into this, most rifles or shotguns, they don't come with sights, so you want to get like a red dot sight, or for a shotgun, or a nice optic, you know, kind of sniper style for a rifle. And then, of course, there's bipods, you know, like the legs in the front. And some guns, they allow you to change your stock, you know. There's all kinds of cool stuff that people can do. You can actually even buy a rifle, and then you can change everything besides the barrel, you know, and then you can truly create like a custom long-range rifle. And and one more thing I forgot to mention, the differences between US and Canada is suppressors are illegal in Canada. So you cannot use a suppressor on a rifle or on a shotgun or on a handgun, but you can still use a muzzle brake, right, which helps with recoil and accuracy, but suppressors are banned in Canada. And so conclusion, we are at the end of the video. So conclusion, it's not that actually difficult to get into recreational shooting in Canada, but again, laws are very different from American laws, and it takes a lot of time, not a lot of money, but it takes a lot of time to, you know, find a course, and then, you know, it takes again a lot of time to get your license, because they're going to be checking your background and stuff like that. And then, of course, finding the rifle, let's say, or shotgun that you want, quite often the stock is limited, and sometimes you'll have to wait like 3-4 weeks till they have the rifle of your dreams or the shotgun of your dreams in stock, right? So it can take time. And then, of course, there's no guarantee that you buy a rifle in a certain caliber and that those cartridges are available, you know, like 50 cents a piece everywhere. No, like this guy from Cabela said, right? Like sometimes they have shortages of this 6.5 Creedmoor, and so I think it's important to choose the design where it's chambered for the round that's easy to find. Like for me, for example, since I'm only getting started, I'm not too concerned about accuracy, and I'm not gonna shoot for like 5 kilometers somewhere, right? But I want something that's cheap to shoot, just to have some fun. And over here, by the way, to give you an idea about pricing for so I told you about shotguns. Now rifles, they're not as cheap as in the States, but the cheapest I saw, I think, when we're talking new, was somewhere just under 600 bucks Canadian, like 575 or something. And of course they can go all the way up, like this Howar M1500 chambered for 762 Russian cartridge was about 1,300 bucks, I think. But then once you get to somewhere like 1,500, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 bucks, you can buy a really nice rifle already set up with a Picatinny rail for your scope, you know, with a nice trigger, a nice heavy barrel. So I would say here 1,500 bucks is a good number for a decent rifle. And then of course a scope, you need a scope. A good scope can cost anywhere from 300 to 2,000 bucks. So scopes are actually quite often are more expensive than the rifle itself that you put it on. Anyway, I hope that was useful information for anybody that wants to get into recreational shooting in Canada. I'm Sergey, and you've been watching Canadian Range. Ciao.